Hello, everybody. How are you? Who's out there with me? Say hello in the comments, please. Shoot me a heart. Hello. Hello. I'm just gonna wait a few minutes to let people get on, and then I'm gonna jump right in. So we are on Wednesday, which means it's hump day. So how have you guys been kind of humping along through the week? Drop me some comments. All right, let's see, what time is it? Okay, so it is 7:03. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So we previously talked about procrastination last month, and so this month I wanted to kind of continue on with that particular conversation. So I'm going to be talking about procrastination again, but I'm going to be sharing with you 6 things that you can use to basically like annihilate procrastination. So I call it Procrastination Be Gone. So that's what we're going to talk about, because that's just been really big for me the last couple months. And I had an opportunity the other day to actually watch the streaming ceremony for Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna's memorial service, and it was so heartfelt and so touching. And the tears just continued to flow. But again, it was a realization that at some point we are not going to be here, and we are going to either leave a great impact on the world behind us with the things that we've done, or we won't. And so one of the things that we cannot continue to do is to continue to procrastinate with the gifts and the skills and the talents and the knowledge and the wisdom that we have been entrusted with. So we have to do something with them. So I'm going to share 6 things with you about how to annihilate procrastination. So grab your pens. If you don't have it, this is a good time to get your pen and paper, because there will be a little bit of homework throughout this process. But the number one thing is self-esteem. And some of these topics I know you wouldn't expect to be part of procrastination, which is why I'm doing it, because I think it's important for you to know. So number one is self-esteem. Procrastination always has 2 elements to it. It's either the task that you're putting off, and it's the internal forces that are causing you to put it off, because we don't think a lot about that. And so the more you deal with kind of your inner self, it's easier to take action. So the first on this list is self-esteem. Feelings of guilt, feelings of worthlessness, those things fuel procrastination. And so when you start to get things done, you experience these feelings less and less. And so in our projects and our tasks and our life, we come up against obstacles. There's just no getting around that. And so we need to handle those obstacles in order to see the task through to the end. Self-esteem helps us to do that, because it helps us develop resilience and the belief that we can succeed despite the barriers that have come our way. And so self-esteem can either grow or it can diminish your procrastination, and that is something that we truly can control. So what is it, right? What is self-esteem? And I know that probably all of you at some point have either heard about it, learned about it, worked on it, but I'm going to just go through it again just in case. But the most important component of self-esteem is internal. It's the ability to like and accept yourself with all of your strengths and weaknesses, and despite the mistakes that you might have made. It's understanding that you are equal to anyone else, and that you, like anybody else, are unique and one of a kind. Self-esteem is not ego-driven. It's not a belief that you're superior to anybody. It's the understanding that everybody is unique, everybody is special, everybody is important. Another component of self-esteem comes from the reflection of ourselves that we actually get from other people. We get either positive or negative feedback from people in obvious ways and not so obvious ways. Sometimes it's very subtle. We can get it from media, we can get it from work, we can get it from being online, with all of this social media, we get it from our relationships. Unfortunately, we can't always depend on those sources to be accurate or to have our best interests at heart. So we have to do a better job of fulfilling that approach to our lives, is developing our own internal self-esteem and diminishing the effects of the external, because sometimes the external can make us go way left, because sometimes people don't even really know us to make a judgment about us, or they're making a judgment about us based on something that they heard somebody else say. And so this is why building our own internal self-esteem and our own internal resilience is important. And so our job then becomes to really solidify that foundation of self-esteem. And the key to doing this is to be aware of what's happening in your thoughts, what's happening in your actions and your emotions, and then take the necessary steps to actually do something about it, act on that awareness. So the questions I want you to ask yourself include: how many of the things I do are based on the need for other people's approval? Yes, I want you to be jotting these questions down because I want you to spend some time really reflecting on them. How many of the things that I do are based on the need for other people's approval? And then, whose approval are you really seeking in order to feel accepted? What are your own personal standards? In other words, what standards do you have, or what standards do you need to meet in order to approve of yourself at work, at home, in relationships? Is there a conflict between what you really want to do and the approval from other people? And so these answers will start to give you an awareness of your strengths and how strong your internal compass is for self-esteem, and really start to lessen your need for other people's approval as well. And so some other things that I want you to think about as you really begin to work on your self-esteem, which is tied to diminishing your tendency to procrastinate, is become aware of your self-growth and development. Take the initiative. Practice being assertive. Talk back to your inner voice. When that inner voice talks to you and telling you what you can't do and who you're not and all that, talk back to it. Set some goals and then take care of yourselves both physically and emotionally. That is a huge one. So you want to do that. So the second thing is dealing with that inner negativity. Ties back into that self-esteem as well. It's possible that you may not even be aware of all the negative voices that keep coming at you, because science has really shown us that the vast majority of our thoughts are negative. And a lot of that is about ourselves. So really think about that and really track yourself. Like, go through the day and just track yourself. How many times are you saying something negative to yourself? Or how many times are you thinking negative thoughts? Why is it so easy for us to gravitate to the negative versus gravitating to the positive? So we want to think about those things. And so that's going to help you to really face that and prepare yourself to beat procrastination. Because I'm sure many of us have said things like, dang, that was stupid. Why did I do that? You know what I'm saying? That's negative self-talk. Or this is too hard, I can't do it. That means you don't have the belief in yourself that you can actually move past whatever that obstacle is and get it done. So we want to put the pressure back on the self-talk. We want to talk positive to ourselves. And so that's our inner work that we want to do. So you want to make sure that you do that. Number 3 is motivation and willpower. Of course, it's obvious that we have to have some degree of motivation and willpower in order to overcome procrastination. And it's obvious that we need some willpower in order to want things to change in our lives, so that we will follow through on the action items to make the change. There is nothing worse than knowing that you need to make a change, having the steps to make the change, and then you still don't do nothing with it. That's just pure foolishness. So you already probably have some level of motivation and willpower. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be in Leading in Life group with Coach Jackie. So that's something that I know about you all already. But if you can't come up with any motivation or willpower in regards to why you're procrastinating on certain things, then, try some willpower exercises. Try something that you've never tried before. When you want to say something that you know you shouldn't say, exercise your willpower and don't say it. Raise my hand because I've been guilty of that. I have to just be like, Gwendolyn, just be quiet. Do something that you really don't want to do, but it has to be done. So just get up and do it. And it could be something small. It doesn't have to be anything gigantic. What we're looking for is to get a win. You want to find a way to say something nice to people. And I'm not talking about that phony stuff. I'm talking about a genuine compliment. It could be something small that you could think of, but this is a great time to actually start looking for somebody to compliment intentionally, because Sunday is World Compliment Day. Did y'all know that? So World Compliment Day is Sunday. So get your compliments ready so you can be ready to reach out to people and spread some kindness and make them smile. And then another tip is when you want to say something appropriate, but you feel kind of shy or you feel yourself kind of back and back, just say it anyway. So those are small steps that you can actually take. And this is building your willpower. This is building your motivation when you do those things. And you're teaching yourself that you can depend on yourself to follow through. That's the biggest thing, is teaching yourself to follow through. Number 3 is assertiveness. So we know that this is a key thing. We've heard it in tons of leadership training, communication training, how important being assertive is. And so we want to make sure that we're actually doing that. Now, being assertive is not always the easiest behavior choice. I have been guilty of this because sometimes you can tend a little bit to get to the aggressive side. But praise the Lord, I have been changed. So I'm a little bit more conscious of how I deliver and relate information, because I want to be assertive, not necessarily aggressive. And so you definitely want to figure out how can you become more assertive, because aggressive is not a win-win situation for everybody. Being passive is not a win-win situation for everybody. Being passive is actually telling people that you're a doormat and they could walk all over you and they could do whatever you want to do. And passive behavior only brings about passive results. So, and negative results. So who wants that? So we want to make sure that we understand how to be assertive. And I know that you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with procrastination? But it really does, because when we maintain an assertive attitude without becoming aggressive or passive, then we have a better chance of actually getting the thing that we want and moving forward. Procrastination is all about moving forward and not being stuck. So some tips that you can use and some techniques to actually maintain your assertive attitude, or if you don't have one, to begin developing it, is try and get clear in your own mind. What is it that you want? Be specific about what you want. So clarify that first in your own mind and speak directly to that. Then you want to use repetition. This is one of my favorites when people are sliding into my DMs inappropriately on the social media. Repetition. So staying on track just by repeating your same request over and over. So they slide in your DM and I'm like, are you reaching out because you need business support? Are you prepared to join a mastermind? Do you want to take a course? Are you looking for some professional development? And I just continue to say that no matter what. And then eventually that person will fall off. So repetition is a really handy tool. You want to try that. And then if you're dealing with somebody who's a manipulator, acknowledge their request, but still go back to that repetition. Stick to what your request was and continue to restate it so that they can't manipulate you into doing what they want to do. So that's going to be very important, because the best solution is a win-win for both sides. And that's really what we want. And so just remember that assertiveness is about negotiation and compromise. It's about creating a win-win. It's not about being aggressive, and it's definitely not about being passive or manipulative. The next tip is dealing with your anger and frustration. We got to manage that. Few things encourage procrastination better than anger and frustration, because it's just inevitable. It's going to happen in life. I don't care how old you are, how young you are, there's going to be times when you are working on a project, working with a client, working on the task, dealing with relationships, you're going to be angry and you're going to be frustrated. It's just going to happen. It's a part of life. And we have become so good at hiding these feelings from other people that we actually have become great at hiding them from ourselves as well. And that is usually the problem, right? Because when we hide our anger and frustration, really, it just comes out in other ways. So we think that we've masked it, but it comes out in being angry with somebody who don't have nothing to do with the situation. So you just want to make sure that you can manage that. So you have to learn how to recognize when you're frustrated, and then how to handle it so that you can be more assertive and move forward and not be aggressive or passive during that time. And then you want to also pay attention to what causes your anger and frustration. Try to make sure that you're separating whatever the current anger is and the current frustration is, separating it from what was previously making you angry, because a lot of times when we're angry and frustrated, we have the ability to actually bring in something old that happened that is not even relevant to this current situation. So we have to manage that and make sure that we pay attention to that. And so that's one tip that you want to do. The next thing is you want to manage your stress. So stress management. This is another enemy of productivity. It's another enemy of procrastination. It's very closely related to frustration and anger. So you want to manage your stress, because stress is simply our body's way of letting us know that we are confronting something beyond our ability to cope with it. And so on a physical level, and an emotional level, sometimes our first instinct is to just kind of walk away, to flee, not deal with it. And this is the point where many of us just kind of give up. And so we can't ignore that. We have to address it, because once you recognize that you're feeling stressed, you can come to terms with those feelings. Don't run away from them. Embrace them. Feel them. Let yourself feel them so it can pass through. But you want to make sure that you get to know what your particular signs of stress and frustration and anger are, so that you can put a plan in place to actually deal with them so that it doesn't get you stuck. Because how many times have you started the day and you've gotten angry about something, and then you weren't able to focus on anything else that you really needed to do the rest of the day because you were still thinking about that thing that happened at 8 o'clock? And so now your procrastination has kicked in and you ain't got nothing done. That don't work for nobody. So we have to take responsibility for that. And sometimes we may not even have caused the situation. We might be stressed out because somebody else caused the situation, but we have to take responsibility for it. So we need to try and create the best possible outcome for ourselves in that situation. So take a good look at your life. Think about what changes you need to make. Do you need to make some time for exercise or relaxation or self-care? Manage your negative thoughts. Get you some positive affirmation. All these things are going to strengthen your ability to fight against procrastination. So the next thing, the final thing, is actually prioritizing. So you got to prioritize, you got to organize, you got to plan. Y'all know this is one that I love. I will prioritize and organize and plan some stuff till the cows come home. But when we feel overwhelmed, that is a major thing of procrastination, right? Because we feel so overwhelmed that we just gonna jump and then we just not gonna do anything. And so we can't do that, no matter how uncomfortable it is, because there are tools out there that can help you diminish that feeling. They're not very difficult to learn, but you have to do it. I know many of you guys have probably heard the saying of, like, how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. And so you break things down into parts that make sense. You put difficult things in order, really take a big picture look and chop it so you can get to it. But for some of those individuals, it may be hard to do that. So let me give you some tips on how you can manage that. So if it's difficult for you to plan and organize, number one is knowing what your overall goals are. Number two is to have a thorough knowledge of your project or your task. Know all the resources that you need to actually complete the task. Give yourself some flexibility with your deadlines, because life happens. So you don't want to set yourself up for failure. So give yourself some flexibility with deadlines. Understand that unexpected obstacles are going to happen. It happens every day. It's going to happen on the project, going to happen on the task. So just understand that they're going to happen so that you're not frustrated and angry and upset about it, because you know it's going to happen. So you've built in the time for it. And then take the time to really plan out the best possible outcome and some possible alternative solutions to that. So those are my tips. Couple things that I want you guys to remember is that procrastination doesn't make any money. Procrastination doesn't move your purpose forward. Procrastination doesn't move the needle in your business. So procrastination is an enemy to you, and you have to deal with it. So you got to deal with your enemy. So I want you to put it all together, and I really want you to think about some things. So I want you to do a self-assessment. This is going to be your challenge for the next 30 days, should you choose to accept it. So get that pen and that paper, your computer, tablet, whatever you're using. These are the questions I want you to think about over the next 30 days. Number one, identify the areas in your life where you procrastinate the most. It could be with tasks, it could be with projects, it could even be with relationships. So, is it in your home? Is it on the job? Is it public situations? Is it friends? Is it relatives? But what are the areas in your life where you find yourself procrastinating the most? And then identify, where do you want to make changes, because you got to be dissatisfied with something. And so you want to put a plan in place to make those changes. And I want you to give as much detail to that as possible. Like, what is it like right now? Describe that situation in detail. Then I want you to ask yourself, how do you see it changing? What is your vision for moving forward? And then write in as much detail. Remember, clarity is power. So you want to write in as much detail. Remember, you can you achieve change through a combination of dissatisfaction with the present, plus a vision for the future, plus a plan for making it happen and taking the first steps. That's how you're going to beat procrastination. So I want you to think deeply about that. The next thing I want you to think deeply about is, I want you to, those changes that you said you wanted to make, I want you to start them off with I will. And then whatever the change is that you decided. And I want you to look at each of those changes, and I want you to ask yourself, what's the payoff if I just leave things as they are, if I don't change at all? What's the payoff? What are the negative consequences that are going to happen if I don't change? What are the benefits if I do change? And can I handle them? Are there any negative effects that could happen if I make this change? And if so, am I prepared to handle them? Prioritize the changes in order that you want to tackle them, and then just go ham and start knocking them down. The next thing is, turn those challenges into goals. Decide when you want to achieve them. Write a plan down for each goal. You want to do that. It could be a vision board, a journal, tell somebody about it, but you need some kind of accountability. The next thing is, you want to measure your success. And I know I'm over my 15 minutes, but hopefully Coach Jackie will let me just roll. You need a way to measure your success. So how are you going to know if you reached your goal? So you need to have some targets, put some measurements in place. And then I want you to write down each goal. And I really want you to think through the negative things associated with that goal, so that you can get in front of what might keep you from moving forward. What will keep you procrastinating on moving forward? So I want you to really think about that. So those are my tips. I want you to also remember to celebrate along the way. We don't celebrate enough. So every win is a win, no matter how small, no matter how big. Our goal is to get wins under our belt. And so you want to make sure that you break out some time to celebrate and congratulate yourself when you accomplish some goals. When you stop procrastinating and taking action, you want to reward yourself, compliment yourself along the way. Now, if you are struggling with keeping yourself accountable to your goals, if you know that you need to take a major step to move the needle on your goals, then you might want to consider joining the Mastering Your Success Mastermind with me for 90 days. And yes, I got permission from Coach Jackie to offer this to you guys. It's the only reason I'm offering it to you. But this is basically a live incubator where I walk you through step by step on how to flush out your goals, the steps you need to take, and if necessary, also helping you to implement the appropriate systems and processes to make it happen. It is intense, but we get results in 90 days. I don't believe in just talking and planning without implementing and executing. This is what makes this mastermind experience unique. And so if you want to learn more, you can feel free to visit masteringyoursuccessmastermind.com to register today. We kick off on March 11th. So don't procrastinate. Get your butt in there. Or feel free to reach out to me via DM or in the group. I'll be over there to answer some questions. But the biggest thing I want you to remember is that we are annihilating procrastination from our lives so that we can fully move into what God has for us. And so those are my tips. I hope you have enjoyed them. Thank you for spending this Wednesday evening with me. Mwah. Smooches. Goodbye, beautiful people.